Oh, good morning again from Majestic Mesa for another review of our fabulous webinar here on the assemblage point of force.
Good morning to all. We're so glad you're with us. It's fun that we get to do this again.
So, assemblage point of force. Now, force is a word all of its own. It's kind of interesting. It says it pushes something in one direction and not another. Force is the assemblage point that aligns your month in a particular direction that has 1/6 topics that you're working upon in relation to all other assemblage points you go into. So force is the backdrop of assemblage points that direct the dream stream that then direct the other assemblage points you go into through time. There are 6 that are very intriguing to think about, and you can kind of look at it within yourself. Well, what assemblage point of force am I in for this month? And then try to organize it so you get to experience that a little bit and help it arrange your dream stream or arrange your other assemblage points in a direction that is perhaps more true to what you're working on than something else. The first assemblage point of force is known as truth. Truth is an amazing possibility that aligns you into the truth of who you are to direct the dream in the direction that's needed for you and not necessarily anybody else. So the assemblage point of truth realigns you into you, so you know who you are enough to choose your direction in your life in a manner that serves your archetype and your Tao and Tao. Truth rolls around many times per year, generally to help you know who you are as you realize you. No two people necessarily have the same assemblage point of force, even twins. You be in different forces because you need to understand something about the polarity between you or something else you're looking at in your partnership. The same for children that are seeds that you may be raising or working with in some capacity. Same for other seeds that you may know in your life. Now, the assemblage point of force doesn't necessarily direct the lives of others. This is truly just a seed capacity because somehow the society that we know has lost their capacity to know many things that they may have in another galaxy before they arrived upon Earth. And so, assemblage points is not really something that they understand except to polarize themselves in a positive place and try to push somebody in a negative place. It's not very valuable to society at large to always be in such a huge polarity. So one thing the assemblage point of force, and particularly the one of truth, does is say, I am not a part of your play. The assemblage point of truth will say, I am not a part of your play and I don't have to participate in positive and negative poles that you like to polarize your reality or your dream stream or whatever else that you are doing within this life of yours. So if you find yourself in a negative pole, think about truth to help you realign into what is true for you as a star seed. The second assemblage point of force that is known as care. Intimacy is another term for it. Sway is another term. But we're going to use the word care because care is about caring for you and me, and in the care you sway, and in this way you bring about joy and maybe force behind the dreams you're trying to ignite with others in your life dance. So in months in which you are under the assemblage point force of care, you're working on your issues of sway, or who do I care for and who do I not care for, and why don't I care for them, or why can't I care for them? As a runner has come to understand that some people in your current society just don't know how to sway. They jump up and down in light and sometimes get very agitating to be near. But when you're in the force of sway, you may learn to sway up either by yourself or with others that help you somehow regroup into care space of you. Because what happens when we can't sway with others is suddenly you lose your own care space, and in that it feels very depressing or difficult in your own heart to be in this world of non-sway. So in the months of the force of sway or care, you're working on those issues to try to clear them and become more fluid in your live stream, in your own realization, in your own capacity to sway and take care of you, even if there are other obstacles that don't want to allow you to do that. Just overcome them by saying, well, I'll just sway with me and you can do whatever you do and I'll have a great day, and I don't know about you, but I'll be better and perhaps you won't, and that's the force of care. Caring for those that you can care for is also very important, and Babaji mentions that in his work with Asarana as well. This society is broken birds, and they just don't know very much, and in their brokenness, you can just care for them in the understanding that they're broke too much to remember how to care. That helped heal something big for her, and perhaps something you can think about for yourselves too. The third force of assemblage point is honor. Honor is a space where you honor you first and try to honor all others. There are times where you can honor because people treat you fairly or they do for you what you thought they were going to do. However, there are other times when they really don't, and that can be very disturbing for Cs. Because in C's society, it was supposed to be a constant stream of honor from one to the other and the other to the other. You always gave each other space to do what you were best at without criticism or judgment or disvalue of something that you or maybe intrinsically in you. And so it was a less judgmental society. And here is such a judgmental society that there is barely any honor that flows between people at all. Learning to honor you under the assemblage point force of honor is an opportunity to say, well, I honor me even if you don't, and therefore I'm not going to play your game or play your invalidation or play your injustice in my word or in my dream. And you simply change the dream stream then, and people realign in a new direction. One of our initiates in Asarana Empire's Dreamtime Ascension School, or DAS, remembers how her mother, who was just the most invalidating woman you could ever have around her, somehow this initiate shifted her assemblage point, and suddenly her mother started to compliment her all over the map. And she thought to herself at the time, what the heck did I do that suddenly shifted this woman into a different position when she's always usually hypercritical and judgmental about me? It was this initiate own healing inside herself around the assemblage point of honor, and she motioned into it, and her mother changed her position. She realized that it's all about me, and it's really not about her mother at all. I have to heal me, and then everything else changes. And that is just the truth of all seeds. As you heal you, you fix whatever it caused this ill dream to you, or whatever it is that you're having a problem with. And the dream will change, and suddenly everything rearranges itself into a new direction that's more positive, or more gracious, or more wonderful to experience in life. The assemblage point of honor in particular is one that can really shift your dream stream with people that you have a lot of strife around in a new direction once you really embrace honor within you. The fourth assemblage point of force is peace. Peace is an airstream of just embracing you for who you are and embracing others for whoever they are without a need to change them or fix them or heal them. Most of the time with star seeds, if you're in a position of non-peace, you're healing somebody by taking on their negativity or taking on an airstream of theirs that really doesn't work for you. And it puts you out of your center, and it puts you out of the space where you can be at peace about you or their life or your life. Now, one thing about the current society is they have a tendency to blend. They blend in every way you can imagine. Every company blends and is like a collective consciousness of everybody that works there. Every grocery store blends with the neighborhood and the people that shop there. Every business blends with everybody that joins them to participate in the business. Everything blends because they don't know how not to, and that's how they structure their dreams. That is the most confusing thing for seeds, because even when you were little and the non-seeds in your family that blended with you made you very uncomfortable. Often you didn't know how to come back to the center of yourself outside of perhaps merging with nature. So often a kingdom would come along when you were a child and say, "Well, just blend with me." For Pear it was tiger, for Asarana it was eagle. For some it's deer or swan or some other kingdom in the bird range usually. Then you would blend with that nature kingdom and would feel better because they weren't as disturbed as your father or your mother or brother or sister, aunt, uncle or grandmother or whoever else lived with you. And then you be okay for a time until once again they blended with you and kind of pushed nature into the back burner of itself. Peace with nature may still work for you in some way when you take yourself out and about and take a hike through the redwood trees, pine trees, oak trees, or any trees, or sit by a beach or lake, or do some of those beautiful things that star seeds love to do when they enjoy the mountains and the air and everything of earth that you find beautiful. The problem is nature has its problems too, and sometimes you may get into airstream with nature that is truly about her own death because the planet is using an extinction cycle after this next light motion cascades to its closure in about 300 years. You can go blend with nature and suddenly feel her despair or death and some kingdoms have been withdrawing their consciousness for about 5 years. At another time, in the Ascension Insights series, Asarana wrote extensively from nature. She didn't realize that they were going to extract, but they wanted to love humans one last time and chose those of us that resonated with the ascension materials and showed up at DAS events to participate in their care space. And then they withdrew, and Asarana was forlorn. And some of you maybe have been forlorn ever since because you no longer have a beautiful airstream of nature to blend with as you once did as a child. In the force of peace, you come into the center of you in you, in you. You don't blend with anything. You don't blend with other people. You don't blend with nature. You just are who you are. Generally, who you are is at peace with you. It's just that when you blend with other people, it pulls you off center, and then you're uncomfortable in your own world. So in the months that the assemblage point of peace is the main force, you learn to come more into your own center. You learn to bring yourself back into the space of the you, and not be there for other people as much as being there for yourself to understand you. And that's a very important place to be, to realize yourself through time. And so the assemblage point of peace is a realization fostering. And sometimes there may be more months in the assemblage point of peace out of any given year as a result that your Tao may put you there because you need to get to know yourself better. The fifth assemblage point is about love. Love is different than care. Care is about the sway between people. Love is about the fostering of your heart space to flower and flourish and bless you and bless others. And create space of love between you and your children or your friends or your family or your soulmates or other people you know in your life rather than just sway. Care space and sway do generally go together. So you sway and then you bless and flower your hearts together. Two that can do that as beloveds do better in your partnership if you remember to sway and then bless rather than try to bless without swaying. That's something to think about even in friendships or times that you go out to be with people you know. You can sway at first and then let the heart space flower amongst you, and it creates much more poignant times of deep care and deep synergy and deep sharing. of capacity of who you are and who they are, and in a place of being present fully in each of your bodies. There are many forces that come in to share when two can sway up and love and flower. The angels will show, Spirit will show, Tao and Tao will show, and many Tao and Tao will show. And they all have something to contribute to your moment of love. For the beloved, you want to recycle into that many times a year, if you can, and have those deep, poignant moments together that cause the union to carry on into the future. So for those in a twin partnership, often the Tao will put you in the assemblage point of force of love for perhaps many times a year, rather than just 1 month a year, as they might in the life of a single. A single person has other issues to work on other than love, because they're not in partnership unless perhaps they're raising children, in which case that's a little different circumstance of a life of a seed. The assemblage point of love in a force can be used in group settings, and those of you that are healers may rely upon that assemblage point of force intermittently as you go to heal somebody. And so those of you that are therapists of some kind, massage therapists, psychics, or counselors, can put people through the assemblage point of force with your Tao into deliberate action of care space and love space to allow a healing to unfold. It's an intermittent assemblage point force. It's not necessarily for the entire month, but it's for the purposeful mission of fostering a karmic exchange where you give to someone in a way that they can mend their heart or mend their care space and their sway space and their love space. Most problems with care space and love space go back to birth memories, because in the shock of being born in this world, there is an immediate breach of the heart of most babies. Some people get over it, as sees in your transfusion, where you finally erased all the memory banks out of your spine with light that hold on to that original shock of being born into a world of deep non-care. The non-sees, unfortunately, sometimes don't know how to erase their spine of its memory banks, and as a result, they carry their wounds forward, and they don't know how to discharge for them at all. That's very sad for them, and healers need to be aware of that, because some people may be able to release something you help them trigger. Other people may not, and then you create a rift or something else in their lives that may not work for them. So be careful how far you push anybody as a counselor or a healer of the non-C status because they may or may not be able to fix the problem that they're having within their own memory banks. 3 out of 10 non-Cs can heal their past, and the others generally don't ever get to it much and may live a very non-conscious life where they don't think about healing at all. And so if you find that you have strife with somebody who just can't heal something and pushing them into the assemblage point force of sway and then love, it will mend the riptides enough that they can motion out of your life as a healer and carry on and not be a walking wounded one more than when they came to you. And that may be important to remember if somebody shows up deeply wounded about something that they can't heal. So the sway in the force of love can be powerful healing for the walking wounded and the broken birds that may come into your circumference as a healer. Love heals many things and is one of the most forgotten rays perhaps in this world. And maybe that's also why the walking wounded don't run enough of the pink and blue rays to heal themselves through time. That's very sad too. The 6th assemblage point of force is freedom. Freedom is a stance that you're going to push forward and go forward in motion, in a new direction, either in the life of yours ahead or within yourself. If there's a life change coming where you are going to make a move or motion to go somewhere else and make a big change, depart from a partnership, depart from children, move to another nation, wherever it is, you may be in the assemblage point force of freedom for up to 9 months before you actually make your move. It's a force that's generated through your Tao to say the time is now for this life change and not tomorrow, and that has an amazing capability of rearranging the dream to align in a direction that you're going to change within yourself. Now, if it is not a Tao choice to free you up from your current circumstance and carry you into another direction, you have to be aware of that too, because some people don't want freedom, or they want to make a change and it really isn't time. They may be in a future point where that change is going to fold into their life dream and stream due to your life now, but it's not time yet. That was a problem for Asaran and Pear, who wanted to move to Gold Canyon, Arizona for probably 2 years before it actually occurred. She would go into that future and come back and say, "We got to move, but it wasn't time." The assemblage point force of freedom showed up maybe 6 months before they actually purchased a house there. And then it was time and the dream aligned and it was all boom, 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 okay? For 6 months out of the year, they live in Alta, Norway, and then the other 6 months they live in Gold Canyon. So when your Tao dreams freedom for you, it all aligns. If you think you need to free yourself when your Tao isn't dreaming with you, A, it may not align enough even to pack your bags, and B, it may not align enough to even know where to go. And so be aware that if there's something to learn from the current place that you're living, if there's something to realize through in relation to what you're doing, if there's something to realize through with the people you're associating with, if there's something to realize through in relation to the type of transfusion you're motioning, then your Tao is going to keep you where you are, because you're not through yet with what you're trying to do or understand or be or know enough to hit the point where the freedom force of the assemblage point shows up to free you up and cause you to move because it's time. Sometimes for the feminine who sees the future, that's difficult. Asarana was definitely in that position because it's easier for the feminine to roll into a future change and kind of feel all the joy that comes out of that before it's time to actually announce it and make it viable to actually occur. So be aware of that and don't try to motion forward in a direction that isn't right for you until it's time. For men, they tend to bring up the rear, and so you generally don't suffer from the anxiety of feeling like we need to make a move before it's time. It's just that the male tends to sit in the past and the female in the future. And then that's conflicted sometimes in divine partnerships of divine twins, because the feminine is pushing to go forward, whereas the masculine is going, whoa, now is perhaps not time, or I don't feel that in my bones yet, and I can't go there, and it can create conflict. So it's better to recognize that your Tao arranges this and turn it over to him and just let go and sway where you are now and enjoy what you're doing now rather than running off into a future that can't work now. It can only work when it's time, and so we'll point that out to all of you. Now there's times to motion certain assemblage points of force into the month that you're not currently under the aspect of for the entire 30 days. Sometimes the assemblage point of freedom is one you motion into to free up the ties that binds or free up the attachments that are either forming with others who have formed through time on specific pivot point issues that are a part of your anthology. One thing that the CX system is acknowledging is that the current civilization doesn't erase their past, and that's a very sick thing for them and possibly for you too. In C system galaxies generally, every human on any creation erases their past every 4 days so they can be here now. And that releases any trauma they might have experienced so they can put it behind them and do something else and not live like the walking wounded. Well, this society occasionally erases with shatar and nemesis if they foster it to conclusion. But it's not thorough, and so we're bringing you in a palette and keys to erase your past every 4 days all the way back in time to the day you were born to free yourself up from your past. You erase it in you and erase it in the land that you lived or journeyed through time or even the hospital you were born within. As you do this, aspects of your own archaeological systems will come back to be regrouped by your seed Tao, because we have this tendency as seeds to open things up in places that you live to help the community or help the school or help the neighborhood that you lived in or help the organization you worked for. And in that, you leave parts of your own ontological systems and track to other places through time. And your seed wants to pick all of this up now. The reason for it is really quite simple, that the seed is going to leave the earth, so it needs to pick up everything it left behind. So as you erase your past systems of things that you left in school, left with your family, left at university, left at the jobs you've had, or the corporations you worked with, the neighborhoods you live within will all start to come back. Your Tao will sort through them, and if something is useful from it, she may reinaugurate it for your life now. And if not, she's going to vaporize it into gas so it releases from the planet with the seed Tao. The seeds are all in the process of aerating themselves now in the tundra of wherever they've been existing, and some of them are deeply fractionated. And if they continue to aerate and go up the octaves and gasify, they start to come back together again into the wholeness that they originally descended within. This is a very, very important seed issue, because if the seed doesn't aerate enough and send back to its wholeness, it's a mess of a problem for everywhere else that same seed incarnate, and perhaps up to 9 galaxies, because what you've all experienced here is very traumatizing on many levels that you may not even remember. But the seed reports that trauma beginning with your birth strike, that coming out in the world where you didn't feel loved as you're exiting your mother's womb. In other galaxies, it's not like that. They have very relaxing birth rituals where they generally go into a warm water spring that's known for birthing children, and that's where they're born. It's very gentle, with the midwife very beautiful and very loving, and the body produces its own anesthesia of the mother, which is like a morphine, and she's high as a kite as she gives birth, and the baby comes out with a squeal and smiles and smiles, and that's very beautiful. Your seed information for those that give birth to children have that knowledge. They just have that knowledge. And if you are not meant to have children and you gave birth to a kid who's born in a lot of pain in another society, and probably they're never meant to have children and succeed because your body didn't have those hormones to give the child that amazing high along with the mother. That's very sad that so much has been lost in the knowledge of this current society that they actually groom children more perhaps in how they're delivered than they need to if they were just gently caring of the young spirit and body exiting the womb of the mother. As for Asarana, she knew at age 10 that she would not have any children in this life, as her life is devoted to spiritual pursuits and ascension. If your experience of childbirth was painful, forgive it and let it be gone as we erase your past, including whatever children you gave birth to. If you're a father, you don't feel that pain and that you will erase the past of witnessing the birth and your child rearing to date and all the other things having to do with marriage to maybe a non-seed unless you were lucky enough to find a seed mate, in which case you still erase that because you want to free up your past to be in the now and not somewhere else. Be here now is an assemblage point not? Is a part of all assemblage points. You should be here now to be who you are and be in you and know who you are as a self-realizing human. Each of these 6 assemblage points are designed to help you to learn to rearrange your reality, interestingly, to be here now and not yesterday and not tomorrow. Now, tomorrow is another problem for this society, and I'm going to explain that because we bring in another set of palette and keys to erase the societal future that is not archetypal, map, or design that could be forced on you to live when it's really not your truth to experience that future at all. There may have been many times in your life where you felt like you were off track, and then you found some kind of vantage point where you saw what you needed to do. Then you pushed in that direction and your Tao rearranged it, and the societal dream for your future fell away, and another future unfolded that wasn't generated by the societal airstream of humanity. This society dream is rigid. They don't erase their past, and they have a future that's forced on them that they have to live, and it's very sad. Now, in the Ascension Insight series, we brought in some algorithms that assist initiates dream a more positive dream than a negative one, maybe through focus of light and dark aspects of dreaming. And sometimes they could rearrange dreams themselves, but usually not. Those of you that are seers could just get rid of the future you didn't like and called unto you what you preferred. That's how you dreamt, perhaps, since you were 6, 7, or 8 years of age, when you saw things coming toward you that you didn't care for. You just canceled it and pulled something else to you that you preferred. Then you started doing it for your whole family and your good friends and fixed things for them so they have a better dream in their lives ahead than they could muster otherwise. Because as a seed, you can rearrange it and they can't. At the times that you were off track in your life, you may have fallen under a societal dream stream of a future that really wasn't meant for you. If that's true, then you sat in that time period knowing this isn't really what I want to be doing at all. I don't know why I'm in this dream. I don't know what I'm doing in this dream. What the heck did I do? And if so, then your Tao asserts itself and begins to correct your life now. He would use the assemblage point of force to push you into a place where you would free yourself, and that is the assemblage point of freedom of that societal dream that had rolled over you that you shouldn't be living. Often it involves being with a wrong girlfriend or boyfriend, or wrong marriage, or a wrong jobscape of dreaming for you. And sooner or later, the assemblage point of freedom frees you up from that jobscape and pushes you into one you really should be living for perhaps a 4 to 8 year cycle. If you look back at your past, you can see how that worked or has worked for you. But in becoming more aware of how all this works, you can choose not to get into a societal dream stream that would change your dreaming ahead at all. You could choose to go in the direction of your archetypal life now. The life map has been in the backdrop of your reality since you were born, and sometimes it didn't get honored or motioned into opening up and flourishing what it was that was supposed to take you in the direction that your seed would have wanted you to go rather than society or your parents or your schools or your friends or your girlfriends or your boyfriends or whoever it is that got into the motion of interfering with your life map. The life map has a life script, and the life script can play out in some cases with some people of the non-C variety and less so with others. If those in your life script can sway with you and you with them, then that dream can work out with your life map. If they don't sway, it's no longer a life map issuance, in which case the dream falls apart and unravels. That is how archetype of dreaming occurs. If two people sway together, or the mother and child, or the father and child sway together, you remain together. And if not, you go in different directions where you can sway. If the friendship sway together, they remain. If they don't, they depart. If the company you're working for is a sway system, it works and it stays. If it doesn't sway, it doesn't work and you can give it up. Now, if you're trying to be self-employed and if you don't like what you're doing, it's not working, you got to really look at why you're not letting your own company or what you're doing sway. Because if you can sway in your own company, you'll be always happy in it. And then the streaming of that force of independence, which is also an assemblage point of force of freedom to be self-employed rather than in a prison of a societal corporate dream of some sort. If that's what you're trying to motion, then you need to learn what you need to do to make it work. And once you make it work in one independent form of employment, you can make it work in other independent forms of employment. One of our affiliates learned this in dream streaming in real estate, which is a type of system where you have to dream it on your own. The company doesn't do it for you and it's commission only, but commissions were large. He learns to dream stream for himself, to draw in dreams of listings and housings that would sell. He didn't list anything. It didn't sell because he thought that was a waste of time. He learned that over time, and it worked for him, and so he learned how to dream stream independently for his business. Sometimes Tao gives you an opportunity to learn how to dream stream independently and then motion into your own work that is most enjoyable to who you are and where you want to be. And that's a beautiful opportunity for those that learn to realize beyond needing to be employed by somebody else. Society is so rigid in how it functions. I mean, if you want to be independent, say in the farmer's market, you're going to have to grow all the vegetables and then take it to market, and perhaps that's hard for one person to try to do by themselves. Maybe working for the market is easier for those of you who don't want to deal with the challenges of self-employment. The society is kind of like a mass awareness that wants to co-create with many and not in the singular. That's not true in other galaxies, whose seeds are generally born in humans' dream stream in the singular for what they enjoy, what they want to create, what they want to do, and if it's a script society, they motion from endeavor to endeavor to endeavor until they find what they like and stay there. In this society, you get one avenue of income and you feel forced to stay there because you have longevity in the company or in the career, and that builds on other opportunities. But sometimes it's just more of the same, in which case C gets bored, and when you're bored at work, then you're going to get bored at home. If you're married and with children because it's too much for them, and then C may reverse to try to change something. And either they'll change careers or move into an independent career, Or maybe they'll change the family script and run off and find your twin and move somewhere else. That happens a lot for Cs because Cs don't like boredom. So the assemblage points together of all 6 alleviate boredom when it changes the life map to go in a new direction. And then you go flourish it in another way that you're trying to understand something else about reality. We will point out that the assemblage points, of course, line themselves up in any given year based on what you need and not necessarily what they want. And that's kind of a funny comment. I'm thinking of some of those songs that Shakhtar used to write, that you can't always have what you want, but you get what you get, or whatever he said. And that's pretty much true even for those self-realizing accept that your Tao tries to originate dreams in time that bring about increasing joy or beauty or grace, if that's what divinity is all about. So that's true in society, but not necessarily for you to be trapped in those dreams you don't really want to live in and feel like you can't motion on. That's never true for a seed. We're going to explain life map a little bit. Life map is generated by the archetype and it gives you certain goals. It's not about realization. It's just opportunities to do something that Cs know how to do. If the C egg knows how to be a healer, then it's going to direct you into healing. If it knows how to be in a twin partnership, it will direct in that direction. If it knows how to parent and raise children, and you have C children, it will direct you in that direction. If it knows how to be something else that's gifted and working in society in some way, it will direct you in that direction. And that's your life map. And the life map can then fold for you to examine other things your C knows how to do that you'd also be gifted in that resonate with you, and you can motion in that direction after a life reversal. We wrote a little bit in Star Seeds Archive number 5 of Light Wave 6 Mother Sun Dream and Star Seeds about life reversals. Life reversals occur in other galaxies every 25 years. Here, if we've had one, it's probably around age 30, and then you went off in another direction, 30 to 35 into your 40s. Then as you hit your 50s to 60s, you get a second life reversal, and you may give rebirth to something else you wanted to do, or perhaps something else that's going on in your circumference of affluence that carries you in the right direction. And that's not art for Cs, because often you can renew and revive the body into its 90s and be relatively healthy and carry on. That's the gift of this cycle of light, because you're going to renew and revitalize more greatly, potentially, than you have in the past. In the assemblage point system of less negativity, the body revives better, and we share that with you because it's something you really want to motion into and live within from now on. This is something to take on as a permanent assemblage point change for you in your life if you're going to be in seed assemblage points. See assemblage points, of course, only, and allow your Tao and Tao to bring out your life map and reorder it in a new direction if you're in the process of reversing and going to rebirth in a new direction in this life of yours. Since the rebirth, that is the joy of living in any society, because you've done something for 25 years and now we turn another corner. You've learned everything you needed to do from that experience, and now it's time to take flight in the direction that's a completion of the past and motion into a new map, and then you're off and running in a new direction that can be quite amazing. Those of you that have lived through these changes and gone through this major shift, you who went from doing some things and doing something completely different, and you might have enjoyed what you did before but got bored, and now you do something new and you're not bored anymore. That's what a light reversal is all about. If that's so, the assemblage point of force was behind more reversal in whatever time it unfolded in your life. So you're not unfamiliar with these at all, because all 5 of them went off to bring you to a place where you said, I have to make a major life change because I have to love who I am and love what I'm doing and care about where I'm living and be in the place that is most beautiful to me. I just have to go and do this because I can't stand where I was any longer. At certain heightened moments in time, the archetype asserts itself, and then sometimes you go back into civilization with dreaming, and maybe you get disappointed again because people don't sway and they don't care for each other. There's gossip and backbiting and weird things that happen in corporate life rhythms, big businesses that you've been involved with. And it's not as much fun as it could be if everybody just flat out tried to get along. But you have to understand that this society came from a galaxy that was very different in its biochemistry, and they fell. And they fell in their minds and in their biology, and they don't remember the things that seas remember. Remember their broken birds, forgive them, and don't play their gossiping, and be well with you and the ones you can find this way. Enliven your life and enliven the light that you're dream streaming as well. Now the life map has 4 positions, so we'll explain this to you. Is the position to the north, south, east, and west? The north position is I need to make a life change. The south position is I need to reverse my life first, and that you have to reverse before you make a life change. and then the west and the east position toggle back and forth to realign the map to be where you're supposed to be headed in this lifeline of yours. That's what the life map does in relation to the assemblage points of force. In a realization system, the assemblage points of force are not just active during your reversal in your life. They're active all the time, and the force behind them is for you to realize you. So the assemblage points of force are also a push to understand yourself better in relation to who you are, where you stand with others, what you want to dream stream into your future, and how you need to grow or where you need to forgive to find more peace and create more care and create more love and create the things that bring you joy in this life of yours. Joy, care, love, and peace, and even freedom begin inside of you, okay? It's an internal state of being. In realization systems, the assemblage point of force wants you to realize how to be this inside of yourself. It may or may not bring about life change unless your Tao wants that for your life map. So the points of force is a realization journey. You're going to realize that peace within you. You're going to realize that freedom lies within you. It's not about where you have to go or do. Realize that care has to start with you first. That love has to be inside you before you can be in a union with a twin. You have to find the love within you and heal the issues in your early life experiences, in your teenage experience, in your young adult experience. Out of all of these assemblage points, there is one of them that is pivotal to who you are and has always been an issue of strife since the moment you popped out of your mother's womb. It's like you were born either in a place of non-peace or a place of non-love or non-care and sway, or non-freedom, or non-truth, or non-honor. Whatever it is that you felt in that moment of entering the world, you can say is like your issues of trauma. And so whatever assemblage point of force is related through your root trauma in a cycle of realization, you get more of that assemblage point of force in the months out of each year until you forgive and finally grow beyond your root fear. Many of you in DAS have been working on your root fear and may have already gotten over it. And if you have, then that assemblage point of force may fade into the backdrop for a while, and you may find your Tao rearranging in others so that you can bring about those other attributes within yourself. So now if your assemblage point of love is the main issue that's a problem for you at birth, and you've gotten through that, you've internalized the love, and now you don't need to work on that as much as something else, and so the next issue will show up. No two people have the same ordering of issues in their own life experience because you're all unique. There will be another issue, and you get more of that assemblage point upwards in the years ahead to work on that issue. It will bring it up in the experiences of life for you to look at, analyze, forgive, and come to some resolution with until you can forgive that issue within your life history, and then bring about a change within you where you embody that state of being inside of you. So if it's truth, you embody your truth. If it's peace, you embody peace. If it's honoring, you embody honor. If it's swaying and caring, you embody that. If it's love, you embody that. And if it's freedom, you embody that. The self-realized human embodies all six in a nutshell if you want to think of it that way. But it's a lot of work to master through the traumas, the dramas, the judgments, the rejections, and the pain and the suffering, and all of that you have known, whether you were totally aware of it or not. Because a lot of it goes out into the subconscious and unconscious of you and doesn't really get motion through. So in the erasure of your past, one of the gifts that the Tao of Earth is bringing forward is to erase the negative emotions with her in relation to the psyche of you. Most humans on Earth have a disturbed psyche in one way or another, and if that disturbed part of the psyche gets triggered, then suddenly you have a negative encounter with somebody. Sometimes you are disturbed too, and perhaps you go for a walk and ride your bike or do whatever you do and discharge it. Sometimes maybe you get to the root of it and forgive it and let the psyche mend, and sometimes you don't. But this healing is a blessing from the planetary Tao and Tao to allow for a shift in your psyche to mend something that may be a root crack from something abusive in your childhood. Sometimes kids get swatted, and sometimes they even get beaten up. Sometimes they get yelled at, and sometimes the family is very ornery. And you have a sick sibling that also creates a wound in the psyche. But whatever it is, we like to abate that in this session to allow your psyche to grow to be more whole, and in that you're more capable of realizing through your issues and when it's unwell. There are degrees of unwell, and the unwell is less unwell than the wounded bird person who can't mend anything of their past and can barely function, and that's very sad to witness. There are many things about a lost society that the CDAOs are studying in the people you know, the people you've been close to, and in terms of parents or children of your family or aunts and uncles, friends you know in the neighborhood, the schools you've been in, and they were all walking wounded. And you're this little magical person as a seed who knows how to mend you and tries to help mend them too. Although that is a very common attribute of seed systems, it's probably time to stop that like flat out from now on, and we'll tell you why. The seed system is getting to a point of anointing itself to go home, and it has explored the society for perhaps 200 years. The children will explore it for the time coming up in this society between ages 3 and 9, and the teenagers will mature. But we've really come to know what we needed to know as seeds about the society. And so you could say it's time to give closure to why we're here and what we've learned about this society. Seeds needed to learn things, and they need to learn about the darkness or the societal insanity that come from broken psyches that can create things like World War II and Adolf Hitler and the spray of a nuclear bomb over Japan. All very sad outcomes for all the seeds that were alive and witnessed them. Those of you born after you're here to understand something else that comes out of a nuclear quake in a society because they go more greed-oriented after a nuclear war than they ever were before. So the oligarchy society expands into all of its monetary gain as a result of the war. And then what happens is that eventually it has to fold, and then there's economic strife. You as seeds would want to change that because you don't want to be in the strike of something that could be uncomfortable for you either. The truth is you can't really do anything except learn to redirect your dream stream to work for you through whatever trauma may be going on in society. The nuclear understanding of what radiation poisoning is and so on did teach the wealthiest that direct the world into war not to go into that route by and large. It may or may not show up as a world problem for humanity. And to a certain extent, the future really isn't totally known yet because there is such a shift in direction and pulls on the planet, and some of which was a problem and folded several major light gates global-wide. And in that, there's a rearrangement of many things. And the seas have triggered dows and taus from all these galaxies you can even imagine to get their butt and gear and come here to Earth and explain what the hell is going on and how to fix it. That's one gift of opening the seed system, and you are a part of that. So in your own way, you are giving to Earth by letting the seed system take action on behalf of the whole and perhaps anchor a change in the future. Anchor something beautiful for everybody here that you wouldn't be able to support if you hadn't incarnate on Earth. Sometimes seeds do get drawn to this third galaxy. Maybe the phosphorus shift that affects the whole, although this seed system seems also to be harvested by hellions that kind of brought them into the planet and dropship them into incarnating in. That's not very pleasant to look at, quite honestly. Why would anyone want to incarnate that way? Well, sometimes weird things happen anywhere there's darkness. The sea system does study darkness, to an extreme to understand how to upset it in other places that could be consumed or injured, or things that they can do that perhaps can't really be done here for the same reasoning that you would like. So as seeds, you are contributing to a societal shift that is now beginning to reformulate itself, and the future will realign. And in a few years, maybe more, witness what may unfold for the collective in each nation. But in the meantime, it's all kind of up in the air, and it's better just to focus on you and realize you and not worry about the planet or humanity. It's better not to worry about your neighbor or whoever needs healing, because you need to heal you, and often when you heal you, it parallels. And that's the odd thing about holographic assemblage points. It is like you motion in a new direction that allows you to feel something that's fractured or stagnated in you, and then suddenly your partner can do that, and suddenly your boss can, or somebody else you've worked with, or your child suddenly calls you and says, "Geez, I've realized this and then fixed this in my life and I'm better." Or suddenly your friend overcomes their disturbance, and suddenly there's healing for the whole. Seeds can trigger that in your immediate circumference of reality. The point is just to focus on you and don't worry about those around you. They may be kind, and perhaps they care for you, and perhaps they may be kind, perhaps you care for them, but they don't have the capability of understanding themselves like you do. The only one you can ever understand really is you, even if you're in a twin partnership. You look at them and you think you understand them, but you're not alive inside of him or her, and so there's no way you could ever really understand who they are unless you live inside. Their doubts and tells who live inside them can tell you about it, but it's not the same as living inside their flesh. Therefore, the only one you can really ever know is you. And if you can heal you about whatever bothers you out there, then they'll heal along with you. And life may change in rudimentary equations that grows to be more beautiful and flourish in new directions that carry you in the winds of time into something else you really like to cause or effect or be a part of, to continue to realize you. That's the whole point of this journey of life, is to realize who you are within you and with each, and love yourself always. Now, Asarana hasn't done her picture show here, and so we have to go do that because picture shows are fun. We'll start with, okay, let me put up the picture here. So we'll start with the budding head buffaloes. And this was taken in a park where Asarana and Pear got to witness the young studs trying to decide who was stronger to mate with, all the women that will be showing up in the spring. I think it was summertime, so they're preparing for the next year. And it was kind of interesting because they snorted and they did whatever they did, but their message was be in your assemblage point of force, being that you overcome whatever you're trying to witness, to overcome inside of you, so you can be ready for DAS, International Ascension Conference in Kauai. You be okay because you be in the force of your own purposeful mission to understand yourself in relation to the school. Nature always has beautiful messages for humans when it was conscious and aware, and they've witnessed humans a long time in many different formations that showed up. The Buffalo Kingdom has witnessed the Native Americans a long time, so they would speak to Asarana in Native American language that she had learned of Lakota speaking, and it was always very steep and consonant oriented, and she would grasp the basic feeling and then take pictures and motion on. We're going to have you be in your assemblage point of force right now. So we want you to sit there in this moment and take a deep breath and remember what it is you're trying to push yourself through in this month of self-realization of you. See how it aligns with the assemblage points of health that you are also working on simultaneously, and there's not necessarily a correlation between the health issue you're working on and the force issue you're working on. Generally, they help one another in some way because the emotions that are related to the disturbed organ, gland, or system comes into the interplay of realization of what the point of force is trying to help motioning beyond. And so it all works together, and that's the beauty of C-based assemblage point systems. Castaneda is a being, a human, that was incarnate on Earth that anchored C-based assemblage points perhaps 200 years ago. He wrote about these issues in his stories as Don Juan, and whatever he spoke to was very gallant in describing what assemblage points are from the living play that he spoke to in his storytelling systems, and that was very beautiful. Some of you might enjoy reading his work just for another angle of what assemblage points are, so we might recommend that. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next picture. So here we go with this next picture. This is a little baby, and he was a little buffalo calf that showed up one spring and just was so cute. I know they look like little cows, but they're not. He said, "Be forever young, renew and revive in light. Find your truth and your ability to heal yourself." Per and Asarana believe in self-healing and not going to doctors, and only Cs can really succeed at that. Most of you in your labyrinth now have huge books of knowing that you're reassembling and bringing in from your sea egg in another dimension, maybe dimension 4, that is hovering around Venus, because Venus is a fourth dimensional seed patch. As you bring those archives in, you know more about how to motion light for self-healing of most of the afflictions you really have in your body. These are big archives. They are not like the ones you were born with, and they're coming in with the sea Tao all sea patches to inaugurate a seed human system that will be very, very beautiful, but they're not meant for non-seeds. There will be a healing system devised for non-seeds by the new Tao of the planet that's coming in from their own galaxy finally 800 years after they relocated here. She wants them to be better, so she is bringing in a system for them. Her children were once very beautiful, very gifted, very giving, and very balanced. And they fell, and she was very sad. She lost track of them here and couldn't do much to help them in some way. So she's reasserting herself to complete her cycle of understanding that all Taos must do when they are involved heavily in humans, in a civilization somewhere. If they move and you can't find them, eventually you do, and you help them until it's time to let go of life. Most Taos feel that in about 70 years, the gases accumulated on the planet will probably cause the lungs to blister, and most humans will extinguish themselves in that way at the end of the light cycle. And so they're looking at that future, and that happens in most galaxies that inaugurate a new light cycle. Sometimes humans can sway with it and stay with it for a time. Sometimes the gases coming up from the minerals are poisonous for the mind, or poisonous for the abdomen, or poisonous for the lungs, and they have to let go of life and conclude that societal experience due to the changes on the planet. That's very common on all dimensions. There's no reason to be afraid of it ever. It's just the cycle of civilization from birth to bloom to conclusion. We'll switch to the next picture. In this photo, we have this character here. He's motoring down the hill and he's very certain of who he is always. And that was his message is, just be certain about who you are. Don't worry about the rest. You just have to be who you are. You can see that these buffalo light motion. They were light organic enough to move genetic systems in the park. The light gates are there, and the buffalo try to migrate towards the bigger gates because there's gate closure also going on in Yellowstone. They were wanting a light-based biology to allow angels or spirit to dance with nature and more concisely, and that was beautiful for Asarana to witness. We move on to our last photo. Here's our last photo. This was a funny buffalo that stopped traffic in both directions, maybe for a mile, and one side and a mile on the other. And he's just motoring down the road, and he said, you can stop traffic too. And so you can, meaning that you be the bull of yourself and you go do what you do, and if they don't align, let them stand there and wait for a time and figure out what to do next. There's lots of things to realize about as star seeds, and sometimes Asarana may be just like the bull and do things with you that you're not expecting, that push you in the direction perhaps you weren't anticipating, that may be useful for you too, as she asserts whatever your Tao and Tao have to say, and stands aside and steps aside and says, I am not going to say anything that is about an image, because I am not here to talk to you, but they are. So beware is not always Asarana talking to you. Usually it's Tao and Tao, and sometimes other resources may show up, but that's just how it is for her and on the assemblage point of force. We'll go back to our little prose here. I love that I am in a syncopated journey of light wave motion that fosters the force of a positive assemblage point for the month in the care of my Tao, and the love of my Tao in a life of self-realization. Basically, it's stating that your assemblage point of force is not for anybody else. Really and truly, you shouldn't let anybody else assume your assemblage point of force ever. As you map out your life, you perhaps see which ones in your live stream want to do that to you, and make sure to pull it back at any time you feel like you're losing the direction of force in this month of your life. Sometimes when you lose that assemblage point of force, suddenly you stumble and say, "What the heck am I doing? What am I going to do next? I'm not sure, but I'm heading in the right direction." Then once you reassert the assemblage point of force, and all of a sudden it comes together and you go, "Aha, that's what I need to do. That's where I need to go." I think that's almost all we really have to say about the assemblage point of force. When you listen to these pre-recorded webinars, they assist to tune you and your field to our Dreamtime workshops. The workshops are very beautiful to help re-anoint a personal transfusion system that is from your own archaeology and not related to humankind. And that type of work can't be done anywhere. It requires the seed patch that is opening here in Mesa to reconstruct your transfusion systems before you can join our workshops during Dreamtime. Once you join us for that free and clear of other people interfering with assemblage points and interfering with your transfusion, and that's very important to each of you to foster, and it will lead to a level of freedom to dream in different ways or in different places that perhaps you could never be able to foster on your own every day. So we invite you to join us at our Dreamtime events if you resonate with them. Just make the intention to attend prior to falling asleep for any night that you want to participate. We continue to foster sacred healing for all of you with these webinars and Dreamtime workshops. We want to help seeds into their own system of dreaming so you be better in your realization, in your beautiful life ahead, in the dream stream that you really want to experience, that enlivens the heart, opens the mind, increases care space and love and sway, and brings joy into everything you attempt. In all of that, we love you, we bless you, we thank you, and we say Namaste.